Oh, first, let us just take some breath, breathe. So, welcome back to Office Hours with me, Patricia Haywood, of course. And as you know, I like to come in here and just break down the legal and strategic issues and concerns and questions that I get from small and medium sized businesses, growth businesses, businesses that are scaling. And before I jump into it, I just want to know, how are you? It is spring. It is springtime. And I am getting ready for spring. I was actually doing a little gardening. That's why I'm rushing in to do this live, because I am getting my garden ready, my vegetable garden, that is, ready. So I am planting, I am doing all the things that I need to do to get the soil ready, to get the seeds ready, to get the plants ready. And it reminds me so much um, about like running a business. I also have lots of work going on to prepare us for spring and summer. So you will hear some noise in the background. Just bear with me as we get ready for spring. But gardening reminds me a lot um, about how and the principles that we need to run a business, even in contracting, negotiating, drafting. It really does help to center the mind on the important things, the things that drive the needle, as we say, the things that help with cash flow, the ecosystem, the planning, the sowing, the tending to that seed or that crop it is. Um, while it is taking up all the nutrients from the soil, protecting it from pests, and those noxious weeds, as we say, as well as understanding when to harvest, how to harvest. I just love gardening. So just tell me, what are you doing in your garden for spring? Okay. So, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about supplier contracts and how to structure your contract to protect against supplier failure or bankruptcy. Now, I must caveat this by saying we have some terms here that you need to get legal advice. You need to speak to a lawyer if you're experiencing issues with your supplier contracts, or you're looking to draft a supplier contract, or you just need some advice, just some general advice. So, we know that we are living in a time right now where companies are going into administration, bankruptcy, non-trading status, all that stuff. And I've done videos on this before as it relates to construction. And in construction, we know it's a huge issue. Like companies, because the barriers to entry are so low in construction, we have tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of companies, and many do go under, including huge brands as well. People would think, oh, it's just the smaller companies that go under. No, but huge brands go under as well. So one of the questions that I get asked often is supplier contracts, and what are the things that people need to look out for, or what are the things that they need to put in these contracts to just ensure that they're protecting themselves against supplier failure. And so that's what we're going to look at today. So the key, I would say, that the one of the main things that you need to look at is your termination clauses. And I kid you not, I've seen contracts with weird termination clauses where only the client can terminate at its convenience. The counterparty or the supplier can't terminate, for example. You do have weird termination clauses in contracts. But and I've seen contracts as well where the parties, it's not clear that the parties can terminate the contract for let's say a breach happens, and I'll get a client that says, oh Patricia, the supplier has done this thing that they shouldn't have done, and I want to terminate the contract. I actually had this recently with a client, now that I think about it, and the contract didn't provide for that. So what do you do in that case? Often you have to then look to common law, as I spoke about last week. You have to go to common law, and this is in the UK, where you go to case law to see, what do I need to do then. But when you're putting your contract together, that is the opportunity, that is the time when you need to consider your termination clauses. So you need to have your termination clause allowing you to terminate if they fail to deliver on time or fail to deliver that required quality, for example, or if they go into administration or insolvency, or if they breach some material part of the agreement. You need to have your termination clause set these things out so that if it when it happens, then you trigger that clause. You're able to get out of that agreement. So that's the first thing. I would then say one of the things that we love, especially in construction, is stepping clauses, or some people call it substitute rights, where if something happens to that supplier, you as the client can step in to the shoes of that supplier and take over, for if they have subcontracts for or subcontractors, for example, take over those subcontractors, take over those subcontracts, those contracts, and run your project to ensure that you get the delivery, get that product, that outcome that you're looking for. So you can take over the service yourself temporarily, or you can bring someone in to take over that service if it's a delivery that you don't have the capacity or the capability or the competency to do, but you can bring another contractor in to take that over. And that is so key because as I would say last year or so, I worked with a client on a project. It was a hotel, and the main contractor actually went under, and they didn't have any stepping clauses, and they were just like frantically trying to figure out. For also, they didn't know that, like the supply chain, their contracts. They didn't know the terms of their contracts, and so it can be a bit messy. It's always great for you to have these stepping clauses so that you can step in and take over if anything happens to your supplier. And then I would say you need to have some performance and some financial protection. So performance could be, your financial protection could be your parent company guarantee, which I have a video on that. About parent company guarantees, it's mixed. My views on that is very mixed, as well as performance bonds. Now, with your performance bonds, one of the things we're seeing in the marketplace is that because you normally get this from your well, the supplier normally gets it from his insurers, his underwriters. And one of the things that we're seeing right now is there are some companies that they can't get the performance bonds, or they can't get it on the terms that you would require as a client. And we're seeing that right now. And even some suppliers just outright will say, uh, during the procurement stage, that they're not going to be able to get a performance bond. And so then we have to move into what else can we do, which then it will be retentions and maybe increasing the percentage of those retentions. So that could be a compromise. But you need some type of performance and financial protection written into your contract to say that the supplier is going to give me a parent company guarantee if they're in a group, for example, and they have a parent company, uh, as well as the performance bond that they're going to go and procure and provide that to you. Now, for the parent company guarantee, I am going to link that video so that you can watch that video, because it will discuss in detail parent company guarantees and my views on that to help you a little bit more. So the next thing I would say is that you need to have your service levels outlined, and your payment need to be matched or pegged to some outcome. Okay. Now, I've seen so many contracts where they will have what they call the milestone payments, and it will say, for example, uh, first payment. I'll give the example of like a construction project. First payment on kickoff when they get to site, and then second payment, let's say 1 month after, and then third payment, and that's fine if that's how you want to run your project. Okay, we can't tell you how to run your project, but the thing is that if that supplier goes under and you've only been paying them for based on the milestone that you have that isn't attached to any outcome, then when that supplier goes under, what tangible thing do you have to show for the payments that you've made? So one of the things that I like to advise my clients to do is to mm, attach that payment to some outcome, what it is that you want them to deliver and have done by that payment date. It may be, for I give you another example. I worked with a client where they were doing feasibility studies, and they felt, oh, but this is not a true construction project, for example, because they're not building anything, they're just doing studies. I'm like, but okay, do you want a first draft by the first payment or the second payment? Like, what is it that do you want a list of documents that they've read by the first payment? What thing do you want them to show to you? Because ultimately, you as a client, you need something because you're buying these services, right? To do something in your business, and that service is going to help something in your business. What is it helping in your business? Is it helping you to, I don't know, your, is it helping you to, let's say, have a better sales process? Is it helping you to, are they delivering plant or materials? Is it helping you to be able to speak better? Is it helping you to like due diligence, third party due diligence? What in your business is it helping you to do? And attach that as the outcome. So if I know that I'm going to buy this service right now, I'm going to buy, let's say someone is going to help me with my editing for my audio, then I need to know when I pay you that first payment, I'm going to see draft one of the audio edit that I can listen to and see the edits that you've made and the improvements to my audio. And then payment two might be final payment, depending on how big and long your project is, final payment. And I need to see the final version with all the bells and whistles, my intro, my outro, my ads, my good audio quality, whatever it is. But I just can't be paying you every month just for this, just because a month is passing. I'm going to pay you. That, in my view, that's not the best way to run your business, and that's not the best way to structure your supplier contracts. You need to have some service level, some outcome that each payment is attached to. So but if the supplier goes under, right, if they go in administration or bankruptcy, at least you have version one. Then you can take version one to a new contractor and have them work on version one, right? If you're just paying and you have nothing to show for it, no version one, nothing, there's nothing for you to take to a different supplier to enhance or to continue the project for you. You'll just have to start all over. And I've seen that so many times where people just pay per calendar month just because of 30 days pass, they get a payment. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Even in my own business as a legal service provider, I have to um, That's how I structure payments with my clients as well. So I'll give them version, let's say version one or draft one of the contract, or if it's a short project, a short engagement, then uh, I would turn around quickly and I'll get payment at the end of it, right? Let's say they just want me to draft a simple contract for them, right? I'll just draft it and take payment at the end of it. But if it's a long project, with sometimes, especially my construction clients, the engagement can be quite long, 6 months, even more, and I'm helping them along the line from business idea, setting up procurement strategy, drafting the contract, to giving them ad hoc contract administration services over the lifetime of the project. But I am putting no problem. Thank you for coming. But I am putting, I'm ensuring that in the payment, in the milestone payment, I am attaching that to some delivery. So I'm saying to my client, I'm going to give you version one of this contract by X date, and then I will send my invoice. Okay, then you will have time to review it, send it back to me with your comments or your amendments, your edits, and I'll review that and implement them. And then when I send you the other version, you know, I'll take another payment. For example, that's how you can do it. But you can't just be paying people because time passed. And I see that so often. In fact, just the other day I had a client and his contract was just, he had a contract where he was just paying the supplier for, because the months were going. I was just like, what tangible thing are you getting? What are you getting that's helping you right now in this business, in this project, from the client, and attach the payment to that. That's what you need to do. So if they go under, you have something to move forward with. Otherwise, you're going to be starting all over, especially with design work. I see that so often where they just pay the designers because time passes and there is nothing. Then the relationship breaks down, and I'm having to help the client to enter into a new contract with a new designer. There is no version of any drawing, anything to give to this new designer. It just doesn't help. So always attach payment to some service level, some outcome, something that you need them to deliver, and pay them upon delivery. Now, another key thing is trying not to be exclusive with suppliers. And I know, and actually, I think last year I worked with a client helping them to, they were doing like a framework to get more than, because they had a habit of working with one supplier and they were having quality issues. Now this is a um, what I would say like career HMO developer. This is all that they do. And so they would have this one supplier be going around to fix the all the issues that the tenants had, and it wasn't very good. I was like, you can't rely on one supplier. You just cannot. If that supplier goes under, if they're having issues and you're having quality issues with that supplier, that's it. They're gone, and then you're ground zero. The steps from idea to procurement to get the supplier on board, it can be very long, can be very long. So you need to have these people. And even as a small business, you don't need a framework. What all you need is to build relationships with more than one supplier who does that thing that you need. You can't feel trapped in that contract, and that supplier can't feel like they're the only one who can help you with your problem, which sometimes happens with us SMEs. I'm guilty of it too, because we are small and we build relationship with that's how we function as SMEs. Relationships. That's how most SMEs function. Even me too. Most of my business come from relationships, building relationships. And so we take it very seriously, right? But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you don't enter into a formal agreement with your supplier, which happens. Hands up. Learn the hard way. It means that just because you have a good relationship with them, you still enter into an agreement with them. You still have your termination clauses. You still have your step-in rights. You still have your KPIs, which I'm going to touch on as well. You link your payment to some milestone, some tangible thing that outcome output that they're going to give to you, and then you pay them. You still need these things, and you also need to build relationship with other suppliers who they do the same thing, right? So you're not just stuck with this one supplier. And I've worked with large organization, for example, who have worked on a waste contract with an authority, and only so many suppliers in the market can do that level of waste collection, large scale, like collecting waste for a borough. And so there are times when you'll find there are only few suppliers in the marketplace can do what you want them to do. It doesn't matter. Build a relationship. If it's three, build a relationship with all three of them. Don't just depend on one supplier. And so I'll touch on KPIs now. You need KPIs. And a couple of years ago, I did this course. It was an online course. I think it was during COVID time. Everybody was doing all the online courses. Me too. About KPIs. And it essentially was saying that we need to move beyond KPIs, the way we draft KPIs. I will look up my notes on that and possibly do a video on it as well. And I know there's an institute or some organization about KPIs. You can Google that. But you need some KPIs. You need a standard that you hold these suppliers to. And in your contract, these could be some like BS standard, um, or it could be like some industry standard, whatever standards for your industry. Or it could be that they must have some certification, they must be a member of something. Um, they're going to do the work according to the quality of this thing, you know. So you need to have some KPIs. KPIs can be quality, it can be financial, it can be anything that you want to do, just something that you're going to use to measure their output. What does good look like to you? So if, for example, you have a supplier who is, I don't, doing a drawing for you. Let's say they're going to do your logo, right? They're going to do your logo for you. What standard do you want to hold them to? What does good look like for you? And you only need to look into the marketplace. And one of the things that I love to do actually, because sometimes I don't necessarily know what good looks like, but I know what it doesn't look like. And I do this a lot, even in my projects, because I do renovations of places as well. And even in my projects, I will write down what good doesn't look like to me first, and be like, well, I know I don't like this. I know I don't like that. I know I don't like that. And that will then give me an idea as to I what good looks like to me. Because for many of us, sometimes it's hard to know what we want, but we know what we don't want. And sometimes what we don't want is the first place we need to start, because it will clarify the mind. And so write it down, what you don't want, and that will help you to know what you do want and set that standard, right? Look in the industry. What are the industry standards? If you're doing, for example, health and safety industry standards, you have even contracting standards, you have best practices in the industry. Um, what is the playbook? And even if your business doesn't have like a playbook, something written down in a manual, you do have a playbook up here. You do have a playbook up here, right? And you can also look in the marketplace and see what's there. The term I learned the other day was what, mud pie. I learned this term the other day, mud pie. That you look in the marketplace to see what other people are doing, the standard, and you can adopt some of them. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And we do that even in the construction project world. We look out there to see, okay, what's the best practice? What's the best site? What did they do? And sometimes we reach out to them as well and say, can you share the lessons with us? And we put those lessons learned into the contract. So get some KPIs, something, a standard that you're going to hold your suppliers to, and then put in the contract. If they don't if they don't achieve this standard, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to let them know, let them fix it. If they don't fix it, if they don't try, are you going to then terminate the contract? How many chances are you going to give the supplier? Is it going to be three strikes, two strikes, or just one? Or are you just going to allow the contract to just run all over you? I've seen that as well with clients where they've just reached a point where it's become the habit in this contractual relationship for the supplier to just run all over the client. So the quality is poor, they're not doing according to the standard, they're not meeting KPIs. You need to enforce. I like to say, put some boundaries around it. You need some boundaries, and you need to monitor. It's very important for you to monitor and have some type of early warning system that you track. So, um, I think last year I was working with a client and they said, you know what, Patricia, we think the contractor, we have concerns about the contractor that, they're having some financial difficulties. And I said, okay, we need to put a plan. What's your plan? Do you have a plan written down somewhere that you follow when this, because this is an early warning. This is an early warning. What do we do now? They didn't have a plan. So it's okay. First thing we need to do is to set up a plan. Now, you know me, I'm a process girl through and through. We need to set up a plan to figure out early warning, what next? So the things that we came up with is somebody needs to start monitoring. Start monitoring the supplier, doing your credit checks, um, ensuring that they're meeting the terms of the contract. They are delivering output before they get payment. You just need to now turn up. You can't be hands off anymore. You're probably going to have to be nose in, hands in at the same time. You can't just be hands off and allow the project to flow. If you can't do it, you need to appoint someone to do it. Your contract administrator, ideally, should be monitoring the performance of the supplier and keeping check, taking notes, and ensuring that before, because one of the things is, and last year there was a company that contacted me because um, they were a subcontractor and the contractor was going into administration. And I was just like, listen, they contacted me right as a contractor was going into administration. And I was like, listen, this this didn't happen overnight. One of the things that we need to do as well is to keep our ears to the ground. We call this in business intelligence. Okay? We need to gather intelligence because there are certain telltale signs, especially if you are on a project, let's say in a construction project, and you're sharing the site. You'll hear grumbles. You'll hear the subcontractors. You'll hear the consultants. You'll hear the grumbles, right? You see it in the news. If you know that this company is in this group, and in the news it says this group is in distress, you the company is in the group. It's going to be in distress too. So we need to start gathering that intelligence. And I remember when I started practicing law, I was working in private practice, and I remember um, in the firm with my clients, they used to send me like all the news on my clients. I remember that at the time, I was just like, I found it strange, right? Because I was a new lawyer. I didn't really know the importance of it. And then, and then my partner explained to me why they do that. Because you need to keep track of your clients and what's going on with them. Now, in the law firm, we did that so that we can reach out to them for more business, of course. But for as a client, employer, as we say in construction, you still need to monitor the news for your suppliers to know what's going on in their group, what's going on in their business, all of that, the industries that they work in. So if you have a supplier, and let's say, like I had a client, they do health, they build healthcare buildings. So like the NHS would rent out to do I guess surgery and stuff in these buildings. So that's what they did. So most of their like the contractors, subcontractors, they would be in that market, in that industry, because it was very much like there were some nuances around it. Because of course it's healthcare, it's highly regulated. So the industry they're in, monitor the news. What's going on in that industry? Is it okay in that industry? And then that will give you an indication, because now you're gathering intelligence. And what we used to do at the firm was we'd keep a file. So if I know let's say big client A, I'll keep a file. And we'll have like the paralegals and admin would send us all this information on what's going on with that client, and we keep it in the file. I would say that's what you need to do as a business owner too, right? You need to keep a file on all your suppliers, all your contractors, all the people, like your independent um, suppliers and consultants and contractors and all these people that you're doing business with. Keep a file on them, from their credit rating to who is in the business, who is running it, who is your who is their representative, their lead, to news, what's going on in the news about them, did they pop up here and there, and keep that file, because that is gathering intelligence, right? And that will tell you and give you an indication as to how the business is doing, ideally, right? Because the credit rating will help. If you notice, oh, last month I checked it, this month it's dropped, what's going on? Then you need to start looking at the relationship and the contracts, and that's an early warning. So when the early warning is triggered, what is the process that you have after that, right? So that's what I did with that client, and I would say that's what you need to do. You need to monitor and have an early warning system to trigger something. With that, something ideally should be heightened observation or administration of the contract. Another thing that I like to recommend is to get some insurance, especially if you're running a project. And I always like to recommend to my clients, get some employer controlled insurance. You need some insurance to cover in case of anything. Because, like I said, that the parent company guarantee might not mean much, right? And the, excuse me, whew, must be on my gardening. And the performance bond, a lot of companies are finding it hard right now to get these performance bonds. I absolutely recommend that you try and get some insurance for yourself. If you're running a project, get some employer controlled insurance. Whatever it is that you're going to do, try and get some insurance. Go to a broker, a reputable broker, explain the situation to them. I'm sure they will have something on the shelf that they can advise you, right? They can tell you this is what you need, this is the insurance you need. They can go to their underwriter and have that discussion and find some product on the market to help you. It is always good. I know. And a lot of people see it, oh, we're paying up premiums, or we're doing this. We don't really need any insurance. It never happened until it happens. And I've seen it so many times. And even now I'm working with a client we're procuring employer controlled insurance because so the contractor is under, and they're looking for a new contractor to step in, and we're like, okay, now they see the importance of getting some insurance, um, because you don't want that to happen for a second time on the same project. So try and get some insurance. Now listen, it is all doable, okay? Your contract, I like to say, is like your little Bible with a lowercase b, okay? Your contract is going to dictate the relationship. And I believe that your contract really dictates how well you work together as, you know, client, employer, supplier. If you have a really good contract that outlines roles and responsibilities and um, consequences clearly, you will have a good relationship. Where it often goes wrong is when we hide things, just like we do in real life, where we don't like confrontation, we don't like indifference. We just want to, trottle along in the sea of people who don't like to stand out, all that stuff. It shows up in the contracts. We see it in the contracts as well. And so people don't have those hard discussions up front. And if you don't have them up front, you're going to have them later on during the relationship. And that's a point where you just don't want to have it, because after you've invested so much time and energy and money into the project, you do not want a breakdown in the relationship. As I said, it takes a lot of time, energy, and money to go from like idea to procurement to kick off in on your project. And just the footwork, the legwork, not the footwork, just the legwork of trying to find a good supplier is is a lot out here. Just to find someone who can is reputable, can do the work, do it well, is good to work with. It's hard to find. So if you do that legwork and you find someone, set yourself up to win by ensuring that your contract cover the key areas that we've discussed, so that you have a good supplier relationship. And if something happens to the supplier and they go under, no fault of yours, you've been paying them, and they go on, at least you have some output, you have something tangible that you can take with you to your next engagement, to your next contractual relationship, to continue the project. But you will not be able to successfully continue the project and get up and running quickly if you don't cover these things in your contract. You will be out here. I we see it so often with projects stalled for months on end, like 12 months and more. The project just stop, can't continue because the supplier is gone under, and the contract didn't provide for that, and the money has run out, and there's nothing to show for it. And so the client or the employer is going to have to go and find investors or someone else, or work and get some money, build up that stash of money to come again. So it doesn't matter what you do, whether you are a HMO, a developer, uh, um, working in like a construction company, a contractor or subcontractor, whether you do, I don't hairdressing, because you also buy equipment, supplies from people, or services from people, or it doesn't matter whatever you do. These principles apply across, right? With certain nuances. You massage them for your purposes, but ensure that your contract will cover these things, so that your business can do well and continue to live on. Because ultimately, as I always say, our goal as business owners and as small business owners is to ensure that our business live to trade another day. Right? Is to live to trade another day. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. If there's anything you want me to clarify, let me know, because sometimes when you sit so close to things, I talk about it, but because I'm so close to it, I may gloss over certain things. So if you don't understand or something wasn't clear, let me know, and then I can address it in my next live. And also let me know what you're doing for the spring planting season. I know March is gone, but we still have April to sow some seeds. We still have April if we want uh, an early harvest. There's early April. So I'll see you in my next live. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.